Hey, howdy and good morning. I wanted to talk to you about getting amped, okay? 3 different wiring methods in terms of figuring out the ampacity correctly, and a couple of things I discovered that are different just by reading. So that's hence the title. If you want to get amped, you've got to read. So here you go. So a couple of discoveries, highlights. I don't know if you've done this for years. I've just pulled out rolls of MC, but MC rated for 90 degrees C. And we get into the column later. That was a surprise to me. Again, like most sheathed wire assemblies, I just assumed if it was sheathed, it would be 60 degrees. But that's interesting for commercial work. Beyond the limitations of the breaker, you're rated at 90 degrees Celsius in a dry area. Back to SER, again, sheath assembly, but if you look here, we've got type SE, style R, series 800 aluminum, but we'll go to the table in a second. XHHW-2, that is in the aluminum column for this one, that's in the 90 degree column as well. Again, we have these markings carried over onto the individual conductors. And then finally, with Romex, and we've covered this many times, this is type NEMB, and as we'll see, it's the individual conductors are not marked, so there's nothing here from the manufacturer to tell us what the actual temperature limitations are, but the code says 60 degrees. So let's go over here, and we'll hit the table in a second for 31016. But the wiring method, if you go to Article 33480, that talks about basically with Romex, you're always going to be in the 60 degree column. Service entry, again, we just looked, is 90 degree rated. In Article 338, in this particular section, simply tells us that this restriction for Romex does not apply for service entry. And again, metal clad cable, MC, Article 330, we just talked about that. So if we go to our tables, again, copper, here's our copper, 90 degree table. This is the column that the MC cable's in a dry environment. Anyway, I was surprised by that. Again, just have to read occasionally. The SER cable would go over here to the aluminum side. XHHW-2, which is what these conductors are rated for, also the 90 degree column. And as we said, Romex, always over here in the 60 degree column. In the Article 338, it did talk about that basically if the SER cable is run in a framing basically that's filled with foam, which somebody's brought up in the comments, once this is in foam and there's no air movement around this SER cable, you are going to have to go to the 60 degree column, which makes sense. There's no air movement at that point. So anyways, the real discovery for me was that we had 90 degrees on the MC cable, which is funny because after all these years, all we have to do is read. All right, guys, thank you much. Apologize for my throat, my voice. We have our next workshop coming up on January 18th here in McKinney, Texas. Y'all take care.